Hello, this is Steve Barnes, Director of Science and Compliance, and I want to introduce you to the pipeline pump. This pump was designed here in Ventura, California by the team at Aquastar Pool Products. This stuff is made right here in this building, US based. Let's look at some of the key features. This is a 3 horsepower or 1.5 variable speed pump. The motor that drives it is a totally enclosed, fan cooled, permanent magnet motor. That is the top tier technology available for anyone in the pump making business. And it includes onboard controls that give it the ability to connect to automation. It has built-in Wi-Fi, so it can talk to its own Aquastar proprietary app and control speeds and programming and all kinds of stuff that we'll get into here. The wet end, again, this was designed here in Ventura. This wet end is from the beginning designed for 2.5 inch. So this is your up to 5 horsepower pump sort of wet end that we have optimized for the residential and the small public pool market. Highly efficient, extremely quiet, and we'll go into those details. This is a top tier pump with high flow rates and extreme efficiency when operating at the optimum speed for whatever your design project may entail. So I know you're gonna wanna learn more about this pump, and there are so many features I can't remember it off the top of my head, so I'm gonna direct you to our catalog, which is also available online. This is our product information sheet about the pipeline pump, and there are a ton of features here. And the first one I wanna talk about is the permanent magnet motor and drive system. So the motor is what drives all pumps. It's what we connect to the power. It has a shaft that drives the impeller, which is the actual pump part of this. And so the motor is the heart of every single pump in the market. Now, this one is a permanent magnet motor, which means that the internal parts that make this rotate are not using electricity, they are using a permanent magnet. The difference between an induction motor where we use electricity to create the magnetic field and permanent magnet motors is an induction motor is in the 60 to 65% efficient range. Permanent magnet motors get you at a 90–95% efficient. And because we're not using electricity to create the magnetic field, they run cooler. That means the shafts are cooler. That means the shaft seals last longer. So that's what really separates permanent magnet, totally enclosed fan cooled motors from the other types of motors on the market. Now let's focus on the feature that is totally enclosed and fan cooled. What that means is the motor itself with all the electronics and that permanent magnet are completely sealed inside this housing. It has a fan on the back of it that blows air from behind the motor across these cooling fins. And so it's totally enclosed motor, fan cooled, and not only are we using fan cooling, but this motor has the fins, like radiator fins, that keep the motor much cooler compared to a pump with the smooth bore on the outside. So again, another way to optimize motor and pump efficiency. Totally enclosed, fan cooled. The totally enclosed keeps the bugs, the sand, the snow, the sleet, the desert winds out of the insides of our motors. That's why this is an investment that will last a long, long time. It's premium quality right out of the box. So we have a permanent magnet, totally enclosed, fan cooled, protected from the environment motor, and it is super smart. So variable speed means that the speed that the motor turns, the speed that the impeller turns, and the speed of the water pumped are all variable, can be controlled. So this can be programmed and controlled to do exactly what you need to optimize your pool for cleaning, energy efficiency, for fountains, for spa jets, you name it. Any application for moving water, this pump can be controlled precisely to be optimized for that use. The variable speed controls can be managed by the programming on the pump itself. So it can be programmed. It's got 4 different program speeds for different applications. It can also be connected to classic automation systems in the pool industry through the RS485 port. And that's a hard wire that will connect to your automation system. It also has built-in Wi-Fi, so it can be controlled by the Aquastar pipeline pump app on your phone. And it also communicates with the state-of-the-art control systems that can communicate and know how fast it's going, how much energy it's used. These systems can know how much water's going through your pool, how much water's going through your heater. So this is designed to support the very latest control systems. So it has onboard control, it has Wi-Fi iPhone kind of control, and it can be connected directly to really fancy high-end, all the way down to simple legacy controllers for pumps. And all of that gives us absolute control, cruise control for your pool pump. So let me continue down this very long list of features. So one of the things I mentioned that it connects to existing automation systems and the really fancy modern ones and all of that. And so you need a cable with that. Every one of these pumps will come with that cable. So out of the box, you have what you need to connect the pipeline pump to all of the major automation systems available on the market today. So I mentioned the variable speed from 3,400 all the way down to 800 and everything in between. And that can not only be controlled by the apps and all of that, it can be controlled directly on the pump. So this is perfect as a standalone application for replacing the old single speed pumps that were just on a time clock. So you can install this where the old single speed pump was located. You connect it to power just like the original single speed, and then from there you have full control to do the programming, time of day, different speeds, all different kinds of features can be programmed into this. So this is a drop-in replacement for single speed pumps, and you don't even have to upgrade the control system. It's all built in. Another feature of this pump is freeze protection. So freeze protection is what it sounds like. So the technology is when the temperature drops below or approaches freezing, this pump will turn itself on to keep water moving through your system to keep the water from freezing in the pipes. And that's fully controllable relative to how long it will run, what the set temperature is, how cold before it turns on. And these are safety filters to protect not only the pump, but also to help protect your pool and piping. The pipeline pump has a quick clean feature, and it can be set up and optimized by a pool professional for the cleaning mode for a manual vacuum or potentially a cleaner that is dropped in the pool. And by quick clean, all of those cleaners have an optimum flow and pressure they want to operate at. And so this quick clean feature is something that is set up, and then with the press of a button, you have the exact speed you need to clean your pool or spa, optimized for the equipment that you prefer. So we know the pipeline pump has the onboard computer and programmability. It's designed to drop in and totally solve all the problems associated with legacy single speed pumps. And because we're gonna install it where an old pump was, sometimes the fence might be here, sometimes it might be here. And so what we've done is program this screen so it can be flipped around. So it's got an option in it to flip the screen around, so if you're looking at it from this side, you can read it, which I find helpful. And then also the default is where you can read it from behind. So the convenience of adjusting the screen is built into the pipeline pump. Pipeline pump hydraulics are really, in the hydraulics of any pump, are really constrained or optimized by the design of the pump itself. This is what we call the wet end, and this one was designed from scratch to be 2.5 inch through and through. That allows for more water to move through the pump at a very efficient rate. So if you look here, this is bigger than 2.5 inch. Now, let me show you what the classic variable speed pump flow port pipe size looks like. So the classic pumps, going back to when I was first getting into the industry, they had 2 inch was the state-of-the-art, great big pump compared to the 1.5 inch pipes that were around beforehand. And then, so this is a threaded nipple that threads into the pump, and then the flow comes through the middle. I want to show you how much bigger the pipeline is. Look, the whole pipe goes inside the opening of this. So this is what the 2.5 inch opening looks like through and through. Now, like I mentioned, we can adapt to the smaller pipe. So it comes with this adapter, allowing this to be attached. Not enough hands today. So this would get glued onto here, so you can see the pipeline pump is completely compatible with those old school legacy pumps with the smaller pipe. It's in the box, just like the cable, everything you need. Pipeline pump is designed from scratch to be 2.5 inch flow through and through the whole thing. We can adapt to smaller pipes. We can even adapt to larger pipes. But now let's talk about this internal flow path, beginning with the pump basket. All swimming pool pumps are required to have a pump basket like this, okay? And so that doesn't make pipeline pump unique. What makes it unique is the size of the basket. This is the basket that comes with that 2 inch pipe pump that's been around for many decades. You can see not only are the openings bigger in the pipeline basket, the size is bigger. It even has clearance on the back side for high flow efficiency. It's super strong for durability, and it has great flow capabilities because of it being larger. And it's got the same 2.5 inch opening through and through compared to the other guys. So we've looked at the union, the water flow into the basket. Now let's go inside of this pump. To do that, I'm going to set this one out of the way, and let's look at the pump part of this directly. So this is what we call the wet end. And here you see the pump basket. Here's that great big port through and through. There's one on top, okay? So take this out of the way. So let's look inside. You can see it's a huge part. And this is where all of the water gets pumped through the system. So we have large openings coming through the pipe, through the oversized basket, and then this is where the water will enter the impeller itself. This housing is an odd shape. You notice it's not round, it's semi-round, but not completely round, nor is it square. And why is that significant? Because these odd shapes make it quiet and energy efficient. So if you think about what we make drums, we make them round to make the drum sound project, right? Okay, so to make drums loud, we make them round. To make speakers loud, we make them square. So those are two shapes we do not want to use in our pump size, okay? Because those geometries, the shapes of square and round, amplify sound. Amplifying sound is another form of energy. So the shape of this is very intentional. So this has this unique shape, right? It's not really round and it's certainly not square, but it also has these very stylish fins here. But while stylish, they have a much more important role. They are what allow the inside of this to be this funny shape. And that's what prevents noise from developing. As water comes screaming out of the impeller, it's not banging around inside a square or a round cylinder acting like a drum. So the internal shape of this is absolutely important to make this energy efficient and quiet. So there's a lot more going on to this pump than most. So now we've focused on the wet end housing that is the pump. Let's talk about the key features inside. So this is what is actually the pump. This is called the impeller, and this rotates. It's connected to the motor there. That's what you're seeing the white shaft seal. So that's what keeps the water inside the pump where it connects to the motor. So the motor makes this part spin. This actually pumps the water. So this goes inside of the pump housing connected to the motor. There's some other parts here. So let me start is another key component of a pump is called the diffuser. So the diffuser goes between the pump basket, low pressure side of the pump, and the high pressure side. So the impeller is actually housed in the middle of this, what we call the diffuser. And as the pump motor rotates the pump, water is pumped out of the impeller using centrifugal force. And then the diffuser takes that fast moving water, slows it down and converts it from velocity to pressure. And so this is just a transition part inside of these high-tech pumps that optimize the pumping efficiency. They also control and help prevent noise. So it's all part of a very large package. This separation here, the diffuser itself separates the suction side from the center of the pump to the pressure side, and this goes directly inside, and it'll be tough to see. So the diffuser is the separating part between the suction side and the pressure side of the pump. So that's part of the assembly. This is the diffuser. So we have the impeller that goes inside the diffuser. The diffuser and impeller go inside the wet end, and then behind that is what is called the seal plate. So this is the part that the motor bolts to. So you see 4 holes. This is how the motor is connected to the wet end of the pump. The shaft goes through the middle. You can see here is a shaft seal that keeps the water from leaking out as the motor is running, or not. And then this gets bolted to the motor, and then the pump wet end gets bolted to this. And this combination is what gives us the pump itself. Let's talk a little bit more about the pump seal. That's what keeps the water from the pump from escaping by the motor shaft. This pump seal is made with Viton, which is a really high-end plastic that is super tolerant to pool chemicals, chlorine, you name it, ozone, acid, any of these kinds of things that are in the very harsh pool environment. This is the best seal you can get. The seal itself is extremely common. It is the most common size available. So it's readily available when the time comes if you need to service and replace it, but you're not going to have to do that nearly as often with a pipeline pump because we use the premium seal with Viton. And this stuff is not inexpensive, but it's a great investment for a long-term product like a pipeline pump. One of the features you'll see listed in the catalog for the pipeline pump is what we call the high efficiency volute design. That's this funny shape that I've been talking about and describing, where it's not round and it's not square. Okay, so that makes it quiet. Another aspect of the volute design, and if you look online or in the catalog, you'll see a volute design is used in giant pumps, in industrial pumps, and basically what it is instead of a diffuser like we use, we've actually added an additional feature to the pipeline pump, and that's where the water comes in from the center of the impeller, and as it comes out, the pump housing gets bigger, and then the water goes out port typically on the side. So this is a volute pump design. The pipeline pump takes that and the diffuser approach and combines them into a patented feature that we call the volute design. And this takes efficiency from both of those technologies and combines them to give us even more power that is quiet, energy efficient, and very, very effective. So we've talked about quiet. Now let me give you a little bit more on that. So let's go back to the pump itself. Pipeline pump is quiet because of the big flow path, the big basket, the high-tech volute design, the big unions, and all of that to make the water moving through this system as quiet as possible. The one thing that we can't control is when you have a pump moving water, it will vibrate. It's just physics. So what we've done is made sure that the motor is never resting on hard plastic parts, especially not those that are adjustable and flip around. They just rattle for the life of the pool. This one actually rests on a rubber motor mount. This rubber is super high tech. It's not even actually rubber, but I mean, because it's got flame and heat and all the UV and all the stuff that's required for this kind of certified application. The key takeaway is the vibrating motor is sitting on a rubber pad, a rubber motor mount, so it won't vibrate the bedroom that's nearby. These pumps are incredibly quiet and compliant. So compared to the other stuff on the market, people notice. You will too. We've talked about power, performance, quiet, energy efficiency. Another aspect of a quality product is living with it, right? Okay, so that means it's got to be serviced, it's got to be cleaned. The whole point of a pump basket is to collect this junk coming from your pool and spa, okay? So we want to keep this clean and we want it to be convenient. So a couple of key thoughtful things that went into this pump is it has a nice ergonomic, I think is the word, design relative to it. So it looks nice, it's soft on the hands, but you know, when things are in a dirty environment, sometimes they're hard to open. So this design, while easy to use your hand, is also designed that you can put a bar, a 2x4 or something through here to force this open, so you never have to worry about not being able to get into your pump. It has a very large, high quality EPDM gasket, so all you will need to do is snug it up and it's not gonna leak. Now it's robust and strong, so if you really crank it down because somebody thinks they need to, that's okay. You're definitely not gonna hurt it. So it's a great access point design that is really, really strong and convenient. Being able to keep your pump basket clean directly affects how your energy efficiency, pump noise, pumping power. So being able to get into it quickly and easy is important. And just as important is that this basket be strong. So one of the failure modes when cleaning them is because people bang on them and things like that, is they tend to break at this edge. Well, our engineering team said, we can fix that, and they did. So that's why you see this big, thick part on the edge here. That makes it a lot stronger. But we also added a support in the pump itself, so that even as all that yuck is collecting in this and the pump's working and it's got a lot of suction, there's plenty of support underneath the pump basket to make sure it's going to last a long time. Another feature of the pipeline pump, albeit not unique to pipeline, is the drain ports. So it has a drain port on the suction side, and it has a drain port on the pressure side, because those are divided inside with that diffuser. This allows you to drain it for winterizing. That's their primary purpose, is so that you can drain these out for winterizing and not worry about it in the winter. They also have another advantage, is you can connect suction and pressure gauges to a pump that's installed that doesn't have a flow meter, and you can actually measure that and then look that up on the pump curve and know what your flow rate is. So this is something pool pros do, but it's and it's not a unique feature to the pipeline pump, but it is a convenient way and an option to know what your flow rate is, even if you don't have a flow meter. All right, let's talk about safety a little bit. One of the things that is really important for any and all pumps is do take the time to read and understand the instructions. And there's a couple of things I want to point out right from the beginning related with safety. And there are some hazards. It's electrical, so there's electrical issues. So you need a professional to make sure this is installed according to your local code, and certainly these instructions, things like GFCI breakers. There's things that a pool pro knows to do when protecting you from safety. The key, obviously, it has to be wired properly per the electric code. It also needs to be bonded. There'll be a copper wire attached to what is called the bonding lug, and there'll be you'll see it, it's a shiny copper wire, and it runs to anything metal like your electrical boxes, potentially a heater, anything that's metal. That is ultimately connected out to your swimming pool, so like metal handrails, lights, the steel in structures and decks, anything that's within 5 feet of the pool is all going to be connected together through what is called a bonding wire. So again, your pool pro handles this, but this is built in right here on the pump, and that's the electrical safety side of this. There's another aspect to safety for all pumps, and that has to do with the suction that a pump creates just to work. Just like electricity has built-in hazards, so does suction. So your pool pro, when you're installing these pumps, it must look at the drain covers to make sure they're in place, to make sure they are the proper size and design to handle the powerful flow that comes with these new modern variable speed pumps. So very important to not overlook suction safety when installing a pump. And all pump manufacturers have very specific details about suction safety. Suction is one form of pressure that can cause problems in the pool. Then there is the other form of pressure, the discharge side, on the pressure side of the pump, where these powerful variable speed pumps can boost pressures way above what the single speed pump is that they're replacing. So another thing that has to be looked at is the filter in good shape? Because if you have more pressure, now you could cause an old filter to have a pressure problem. So that's another aspect to be looked at. Also, variable speed pumps, these new pumps, are often more powerful than those old filters were designed to handle. Now, they may be fine looking on the outside, but once you put in a new variable speed pump and operate them, all of a sudden you may find that your pool's getting dirty, and what has happened is those old filters can't handle the high flow rate and the high pressures that these modern pumps can create, and it actually damages their filter media inside. Be it cartridge or DE, or even sand. If it's an old small sand filter, a powerful pump can actually just sort of tunnel through the sand, and now the dirty water is getting back to the pool. So if you've had a new variable speed pump installed and your pool's getting dirty, check the filter. It's probably where the problem is. Okay, so we've talked about safety in the manual and definitely encourage you to read it through and through. But now let's go through here some of the things. There's details, good information on the safety aspects I just talked about. There's also a user section that talks about safety within the pool and around the pumps and filters and stuff like that. So as a pool owner, do read these instructions. There's some good information so that you're up to speed on that. There's also in the manual, there's an overview of some of the various things I've talked about, the communications, internal control, motor efficiency, the features. There's installation instructions. Hopefully you're using a Pool Pro to do that. But let's get into, after the pump is installed, what are some of the programming features? So we're going to go through the startup procedure here next, and just at a high level so you understand that. And this is common with all, okay? So a pump moves water through centrifugal force. Pumps are designed to move water. They move a little bit of air, but they're not very good at it. And getting the air out of a pump pot when it's brand new or it's just been cleaned, the first thing you have to do is make sure it's primed, and we do that by filling the pump basket with water, either with a hose or a bucket from the pool, but you have to start out with all pumps flooded with water. Then when the pump is turned on, it pumps that water out of the pump. That creates low pressure so it can continue to take air and water out of the pool suction pipe. So that's called priming. That time it takes for a pump is going to vary. The very first time it's installed and all that can take minutes, okay? But after you're up and running, a pool maybe only takes 2 or 3 or 4 seconds to prime, especially if the pump is below water level. So your priming mode can be programmed to be very short. It can also be programmed to be very long. So again, the programming of the priming is specific to the application, and a Pool Pro will take the time to adjust that. That said, the default priming out of this pump almost always works, so it's not going to really matter whether you adjust it or not, but that is something that is absolutely built in to fine-tune the pipeline pump. I'm going to go through the manual's startup procedure. Okay, so the first thing we're going to have to do is ensure the power to the pump is off, and then then we don't want the motor to run dry. Okay, we have to ensure that the drain plugs are installed and tight so they're not going to leak. Otherwise, we could suck air in addition to dripping. Relative to, you want to make sure the inlet valves from the pool are open, that the valves going through the pump to the filter back to the pool. So we need to be able to take water from the pool or spa and return it back. Okay, that is important for the pump to work. After we have that, we need to make sure that the pump basket is completely full with water, either with a garden hose or filling it with a bucket or whatever. Then after you have as much water as the basket will hold, then you put the lid back on. You want to make sure it's good and tight. Before you do that, make sure the O-ring is clean. There's no bugs and debris and sand and stuff around that, so that we have a good seal. Because the way the pump works is the pump's going to move that water with the impeller that we filled with a bucket, pump it out. That creates suction that then draws water from the pool. In that process, there's almost always air in the system too, and that's what's called priming. So we pump the water out of the pump, and then it'll slowly remove the air out of the pipe until we have full flow of water. Now be aware that, you know, the lid for strength, and it's clear so you can see it. It is very common to continue to see air in these little areas. That has no effect on how the pump's operating. If you are constantly seeing air and bubbles going out to the pool, then it could be that you don't have a good seal on the union, or this lid is not secure, the gasket's not clean. So a little bit of floating bubbles is normal. A stream of air coming into a pump is not. So some of the pipeline pump comes in two sizes, as I've mentioned, a 3-horse and a 1.5 horse. This is what's called the pump curves. So on top is our 1.5 horsepower variable speed. And these lines, I won't get into the details now, but this is the technical stuff that tells you the performance of the two different pumps. It's kind of like miles per gallons on cars, or horsepower, or, you know, V6 or whatever kind. It's that sort of technical stuff. So the bottom chart here is the 3 horsepower. The top one's the 1.5 horse. The high-end flow of the 1.5 horse is 140 gallons a minute, which is really good. And then this 3 horsepower pump goes all the way out to 185 gallons a minute. And that would be on very big pipe, not with a filter, because that puts back pressure, but that's the technical information about the pump. The specifications of it, the part number is the PLP150 for the 1.5 horse, the PLP300 for the 3 horsepower. Both of them are 230 volts, 50 or 60 hertz. We're 60 hertz here in the US, and that's single phase, and that means something to the installers and the electricians. The maximum input power is 1,500 watts for the 1.5 horse and 2,200 watts for the 3 horsepower. Total horsepower is 1.5 and 3, as you might guess. It does have a WEF factor that's required by the Department of Energy, and it's 3.2 for the 1.5 horse and 6.5 for the 3 horsepower. Gobbledygook that you don't need to worry about. These things work when you install them. That's what you need to know, and they're very efficient at doing it. The amp rating on the 1.5 horse is 7 amp, and it's 10 amps for the 3 horse. That's all of the stuff a pool pro and the electricians need to understand. Hopefully, as a pool owner, you just have all of this set up for you. But that's the technical stuff.